Welcome back to my channel. If you watched my October 2021 reading wrap-up, you'll know that Crave by Tracy Wolff is my lowest rated book of the year. I gave it a 1.5 star rating, and I don't think I've ever given a book a worse rating than that. I initially picked up this book because I heard so many people on BookTok and BookTube raving about it and comparing it to Twilight, and that had me intrigued because Twilight is one of my biggest guilty pleasures, and I'm always looking for a series to replicate my love for that. After reading Crave, I honestly feel like everyone who's recommended this book is out to get me because I just don't understand the hype at all. So Crave is actually a book in an ongoing series, and the author has been pumping out these books like crazy. The first book came out last year in 2020, but since then she's already published the third book in the series and has plans to publish 2 more in 2022. But before we dive in, I just want to let you know that this video will contain spoilers, so if the series or book is on your TBR, you should click away now. Also note that this is all just my opinion and not a fact. If you enjoyed this book, please comment down below. I'd love to hear from you. Also, please let me know if you didn't like this book either, because I've seen so many reviews raving about this book and I'm starting to feel crazy. On to the spoilery review. I think some context would really help frame the discussion here, so I'm going to give you a really quick rapid fire summary of the main events of the book. I recommend that you listen to this part to really understand my critiques, but also feel free to skip ahead if you feel like you don't want to know all the major details or want to avoid some spoilers. Okay, so this story follows a girl named Grace. Her parents recently died in a car crash, and her only living relative is her cousin and uncle who live in Alaska. So she ends up going to Alaska to Katmere Academy, which is a high school where her uncle is a headmaster and her cousin Macy is going to school. She quickly becomes friends with her cousin Macy, but also with this guy named Flint, who is this lovable puppy dog kind of character. She also meets the love interest of the book, whose name is Jackson with an X, and he warns her that the school is dangerous and that she should stay away from him. Anyway, being the YA protagonist that she is, she immediately falls in love with this Jackson bad boy character, and her whole life revolves around him from now on. Fast forward a little bit, and Grace begins finding herself in dangerous situations or events, like falling out of a tree, a chandelier almost crushing her to death, being almost thrown outside in the cold by a group of guys at the school. The list goes on, but Jackson always saves her. Anyway, one day when Jackson and Grace are making out alone in his room, an earthquake happens, and glass goes everywhere and a shard punctures her neck. She wakes up in the school's nurse's office with bandages all over her neck, and she finds it really suspicious that she had survived such a horrible accident. So out of curiosity, she lifts the bandage on her neck and she finds there is a bite-shaped mark. She immediately freaks out and confronts one of Jackson's weird bad boy friends, who tells her that the nurse is actually a vampire and she needed to bite Grace's neck to heal her. He also explains that the school isn't safe for her at all as a human because there are vampires, shapeshifters, witches, and dragons. Her friend Flint, that golden retriever boy character, is actually a dragon. Her cousin is a witch, and Jackson, of course, is a vampire. But as I'll explain, that was obvious from like page 1. And those guys who tried to attack her and throw her out in the cold, those were shapeshifters, or I guess they're also called werewolves. Now this is where my enjoyment of the book really started to take a turn. Grace confronts Jackson, and he explains that he's the king of the vampires, and the reason people in the school don't like him or are afraid of him is because he killed Hudson, his brother, who was next in line for the throne. He only did this apparently because Hudson was power hungry and wanted to kill off the rest of the supernatural species. That's where I gave up on this book and couldn't really take it anymore. I technically DNF'd when there were 50 to 100 pages left, and I just skimmed the rest of it so I could get it finished. Leah, who is Hudson's ex-girlfriend, gives Jackson and Grace a tea and then knocks them out. Leah then tries to sacrifice Grace as part of a spell to bring Hudson back, but Jackson, of course, saves her again. And while this spell is happening, Hudson comes in spirit form and tries to attack Jackson. Grace puts herself in front of Jackson, and for the first time she shifts into stone form, and she can apparently shift into a gargoyle now, but that's besides the point, and she traps Hudson inside her head. And that's where the book ends. There were so many issues with the plot, and I don't think you need me to spell it out for you, and I'm not even going to address the ending right now. Just close your eyes and put yourself in my shoes, and just imagine that you've read 500 pages of this. Just imagine that you had to experience everything that I just told you over 500 pages. This book was insufferable. Now that you're all caught up, let's dive in and talk specifically about what I hated about this book. Number 1, Jackson is spelled with an X. I don't think I need to explain, it's just horrible. I'm sorry if your name is Jackson with an X, but it's just no. a huge problem I had with this book was the not subtle foreshadowing. This was a huge problem for me, and I think this is going to be a big chunk of the video. Starting with Flint, that friendly nice guy character, I counted 3 separate times where he was almost revealed to be a dragon. And honestly, I'm not always good at picking up on foreshadowing. It was just so in my face. Here's the first example. "Don't waste your breath," Leah tells me as we make our way further into the tunnels. "He's a total drag." "Bite me," Flint growls. She eyes him scornfully. "You wish." Okay, that's one example. Now, we could forgive it if it was just one, right? Here's another one. "Pretty sure Flint and I are destined to be friends too," I tell her, as I hustle to keep up with a ridiculously long stride. I don't think guys cross their eyes like that at girls they're interested in. "Well, you never know, She breaks off on a violent cough, like she's coughed up her own saliva or something. "You okay?" I pat her back a little. "I'm fine." She coughs again, looks a little nervous as she tugs at one of her flowy sleeves. "Drastic." "Drastic?" I repeat, more than a little puzzled at this point. Drastic doesn't even make sense in this context. She's obviously trying to say dragon, but the character's too stupid to know. I'm not done, there's another example too. I ignore him, do my best Dory impression. "Just keep walking, just keep walking." "I'm only saying," he continues when I don't respond. "Making friends with a He breaks off, clears his throat before trying again. "Making friends with a guy like Flint is..." "What?" I turn on him, frustration racing through me. Being friends with Flint is what exactly? At this point, this must be the 3rd or 4th time that this has happened, and the character is still really clueless. That's not even the only evidence. There's still more foreshadowing that Flint was a dragon. Here's the last one I found. "Hey Grace, looks like you're ready to get your snowball on." I am, actually. I turn and end up grinning at him because it's impossible not to. He's just that fun and that charming. Not to mention the fact that he's wearing a snow hat in the shape of a fire-breathing dragon that looks absolutely ridiculous. Also, in case you missed it, his name is Flint. The next few cases of not-so-subtle foreshadowing are related to Jackson, the bad boy vampire. Here's the first example, where he licks blood off of her lips. Here, he holds his thumb up, and in the dim light, I can see just a smear of blood glistening on his skin. "Oh, gross!" I reach to wipe away the blood. "Let me..." He laughs, cutting me off, then brings his thumb to his lips and, holding my gaze with his own, sticks his thumb in his mouth and slowly sucks out the blood. It's the sexiest thing I've ever seen, and I don't even know why. I mean, shouldn't this totally be creeping me out? Yeah, it should be. Here's another example. He sent her a copy of Twilight. "What is it?" Macy climbs on the bed next to me in an effort to get a better look. "I don't know," I answer, but then I turn it over, and it's totally the last thing I would have ever expected him to send. "Twilight? He sent me a copy of Twilight?" I turn to Macy in confusion. Macy gasps as she stares from the book to me, and then she starts to laugh and laugh and laugh. There's more. Literally his first words to her were hinting that he was a vampire. This is a scene right at the beginning when she's looking at a chessboard at school that's filled with a bunch of magical creatures as chess pieces. When I put down this dragon piece, I go to the other side of the board and pick up the vampire queen. She's beautiful, with long flowing hair and an elaborately decorated cape. I'd be careful with that one if I were you. She's got a nasty bite. You could argue that this one is a little bit more subtle, but it's not considering all the evidence we have. Here's another one that's a little bit more nitpicky on my part, but it's still really dumb. Jackson, favorite song? Me, OMG, I can't choose. Jackson, what if I said you had to? Me, I can't. There are too many. You? Jackson, I asked you first. Me, ugh, you suck. Jackson, you have no idea how much. That one you could say is a little bit more subtle because he didn't lick blood off her lips or send her a copy of Twilight or anything like that. He just said he sucks. Those are all the examples of foreshadowing that I found, and that was just on my first read. I wasn't even looking for them. Can you believe that it took 300 pages for the character to realize that something weird was going on at her school? It doesn't make any sense. There's also this really ridiculous scene where Jackson bites a strawberry in half, and it's so dramatic. By now, nearly everyone in the room is watching Jackson, trying to catch his eye, but he ignores them all, deliberately studying the strawberry he's pinching between his thumb and index finger. Eventually, he lifts his gaze and looks straight at me. Then he raises the strawberry to his lips and bites it clean in half. It's a warning if I've ever seen one, and a violent one at that, as a drop of red juice hangs for a second on his bottom lip. I know I should stay. Know I should face him down. But as his tongue darts out and licks up the strawberry juice in a very obvious screw you to Flint and me and everyone else in the room, I do the only thing I can. I turn to Flint and blurt out, "I'm sorry, I have to go." Then I head for the doors and as close to a run as I can manage without looking even more pathetic, desperate to get away before I shatter beneath the weight of Jackson's obvious contempt. Because one thing is certain, that little show was meant to underscore just how insignificant I really am to every single person in that room. I just wish I knew why. Overall, this story just reads like a bad fan fiction. It takes way too long to get anywhere, and it didn't need to be 500 pages long. Just like almost every YA romance, Grace has a bad case of instant love for Jackson. She is a not like other girls character, but she has no personality, she has no character development, and we don't know anything about her other than the fact that her parents are dead and she likes the color pink. What really bothered me about this book too was that it's clearly written for a young adult audience, but the author throws around the terms FML, OMG, and AF several times throughout the book. And correct me if I'm wrong, but not many teens use those terms out loud or in their head. I could forgive the author for doing this if Grace wasn't at the same time throwing around words like laissez-faire and Machiavellian. I can't even say that one. Again, no teenagers talk like that. All these slang terms make the book seem so dated, and it only came out last year. In terms of the plot itself, it was so painfully slow the entire book until the very end, where things were happening so fast where I couldn't even comprehend them. Leah is a villain now and she wanted to sacrifice Grace. Grace has a gargoyle form for some reason. Jackson is a king of the vampires. There were so many plot points I just did not understand, and they were just happening way too fast for me to grasp. So those are all my thoughts on Crave by Tracy Wolff. Needless to say, I will not be continuing the series or reading this book again, and I don't recommend that you do either. If you read this book, let me know what your thoughts were in the comments. I'm really interested in knowing what others think. Also, let me know if you like this style of reviewing, because I could go on and on forever about books I didn't like. And a lot of those books are ones that people really hype up. I have a lot of other controversial opinions about books that most people love, like The Silent Patient. So let me know if you're interested in hearing those. Anyway, thank you for watching and staying until the end. If you like this content, please subscribe. I post videos every week. Bye guys!